Hey guys, this is Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and I am joined with professional card counter and advantage player, Blackjack Apprenticeship member and pro, Nichols. How's it going, Nichols?
It's going great, Colin. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to finally do this. We wanted to do this back in, I think, April. We were going to meet up, and I was going to get to interview you, and then things changed a few weeks before, and here we are, like 6 months later. And finally, getting to talk about your story on the podcast. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So let's start at the beginning. When, and how did you get interested in Advantage Play?
So I think I was kind of aware of it from a fairly early age, though I didn't have a good understanding of it. I was actually really interested in poker when I was like 12 years old, and that never developed into anything. But when I really got into it is my previous work had moved me up to a town that was adjacent to an American Indian reservation. And it's a very small town, and the only thing to do there was go to the casino. So I didn't really like the idea of just throwing money away. So I figured if I was going to turn gambling into a hobby or a pastime, I might as well learn the right way to do it to give myself the best odds of winning. And I came upon a book called Dynamic Blackjack by Maverick Sharp. And in that book was a level 3 system, which is it's basically just long halves with the tag values doubled to avoid the decimals. And I started learning from there. And, I ended up, for a while, I was going to the casino almost every day once I felt like I had mastered things, but I really hadn't, looking back. I played way before I was ready, for sure.
So you moved to a kind of a small town for work, and gambling is kind of the thing to do, and that led you into Advantage Play. How did your family or friends take your interest in this?
Well, at first I was not very vocal about it. I kind of kept it to myself. I might talk to a few really close friends about it, but that would be about it. But, as things have progressed and as I've eventually made it into the way I generate most of my income, I've been a little more open with it with close family members and friends. And, they've been pretty accepting of it. They don't see any problem with it, which, coming from a religious upbringing, you'd think it might be. But, ultimately, when I showed them the results and actually, showed them like CBCX and what a simulation looks like, they seem to understand it and not have really much of a problem with it at all.
That's nice. That's kind of what I thought would happen. Is if I could prove the results to my parents, my in-laws, that they'd be cool with it. But it didn't go as well initially, coming from a religious background. But it sounds like people were pretty sensible about it, and maybe you are more trustworthy than me. Who knows? So you started with this level 3 count. What was your training like? How did you train yourself?
I would just get used cards from the casino and just count them down, and I would deal out hands to myself and try to do basic strategy with counting. And this was one of the bigger mistakes I made early on, is I just kind of ignored the deviations. I think at one point I started using like insurance and 16 versus 10, the two most important ones, but I wasn't really taking that part of it seriously, and I probably should have. And then another mistake would have been I wasn't running the numbers and practicing good bankroll management either.
Is that count even in CVCX?
I mean, it's identical to Wong halves. It's just that the tag values are doubled, so you can just do it under halves, and it would
So
work.
I'm trying to remember with halves. It's like there's 0.5s, there's ones, and is it twos or?
And then fives are 1.5.
Okay.
I don't use that count anymore.
Yeah. So you had ones, twos,
But
threes, and fours in your count.
so because the tag values were doubled, I had ones, twos, and threes. So I had to
Oh,
count the
ones, twos, and
fives as
threes.
+3, and the nines were -1, and the tens and aces were -2. Twos and sevens were +1, and then the other small ones were +2.
Okay. Okay. And was um did it just take a little while to get through being able to count through a deck quickly with that level
It
3?
it took a long time. I'm not sure I was ever really fast enough. That's a
Mhm.
big reason why I ended up switching to high-low. Was I felt like I was taking way too long to count the
Mhm.
actual cards. Because with a count like that, like if I have a 5 and I'm trying to cross cancel to count quickly, I need a 9 somewhere to
Yeah.
to make an odd number with a 10 or an ace, and it wasn't very clean. I'm sure there was a better way to do it, but I didn't know how, so I switched to high low
Yeah.
for simplicity.
Yeah, I mean, the people have probably heard me say this before, but I don't know how much more EV that count would be than high low. Maybe 10 or 20% more, but you got to be 10 or 20% slower.
Right.
Not to mention the mental fatigue, the possibility of making errors, all that stuff.
For
So you
sure.
switch to high low. What do you tell people who are asking about learning a more complex count?
Um, if they want to do it as some sort of academic exercise, like they just want to challenge themselves with it, that's great. Maybe if they're playing a lot of, like, maybe if their goals are different, right? Like if they're playing a lot of deeply dealt double deck or maybe even single deck games, and they want to not get kicked out and spread really small and have a high playing efficiency with something like high opt 2 and an ace side
Hmm.
count,
Hmm.
I can understand that. But if your goal is just to make money and to play as many positive EV rounds per hour as possible, something like high low or KO is probably your best bet. I mean, and Zen seems pretty simple too. I'm sure
Hmm.
that one's fine. But
Yeah,
that's not where the money is in a more complex count.
yeah. I'd completely agree. The first team I was on, the guy that we teamed up with, he used high low for shoe games, and he used high up two with an ace side count for double deck, and he'd been playing for a long time. But it was like double deck. He was normally playing heads up, and he could manage that count as quickly as was necessary for a pitch game. And it was like, well, it's worth the added, like you said, some added EV, but also just a better correlation and going to get to the long run faster. And I remember Kevin Blackwood, he only played single and double deck games for his entire career, and so he used a more complex count. But yeah, it doesn't really, even then, I don't know how worth it's going to be at the end of the day, when you consider it being slower, more mentally fatiguing, all that. But so you started out. What kind of bankroll were you playing off of at the beginning?
So as a part timer, I was not smart about it because I didn't set aside a bankroll, so to speak. I would just kind of go in with whatever my ATM limit was and play off of that. So it was really bad
Hmm.
starting out part time. And I was very lucky as a part timer though. I'm not 100% sure I was playing a winning game at that point in time, but I was winning.
Yeah.
Um, and when I went full time, um, I still had a pretty small bankroll for a full timer. The and the only reason I really went full time was because I had some other things that were not blackjack related with a bigger edge, and I don't think I would have gone full time on a $15,000 bankroll if I was just card counting.
Yeah. Okay. So let's back up here. How long was it before you went full time?
So I started playing sometime in 2015, and this was before I had actually moved up there, but it was when that move was in the works, and so I was going up there a lot just for work. And then 2016, I was playing a lot, and like the middle of 2017 is when I went full time, and that like it wasn't really a conscious decision to go full time. It was more that my employer and I didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I decided to leave that job. And while I was while I was looking for work elsewhere, I thought to myself, well, in the meantime, I know how to do this, this, and this in a casino to make money. So why don't I go try that while I'm looking for employment? And then I kind of just kept doing that.
You never looked for employment. That's great.
Yeah.
So you started pretty small, just kind of what you could pull out of the ATM. How did you grow that to 15K?
So that original 15K, it had to do with a lot of just, so a lot of it was local, playing some bigger edges on non-table games type things. And then the other thing was I would go up to a jurisdiction that was maybe 5 hours away, and they had, so for me, like with a smaller bankroll and not really having a ton of money, they had $2 minimums. So even if the games weren't amazing, you could play a $50 top bet and still be spreading 1 to 20.
Yeah.
You know, or 1 to 25, I guess.
Yeah.
And you know, and on top of that, this place was really, like, there were a few places in that town that were really, really old school where they didn't have a peeker on the table. And they would peek under the 10. So you could, I mean, like your last podcast with Richard, he talks about first basing. You could actually first base in 2016 in this place.
That's amazing.
And it was kind of nice. And then you could also, you know, like play the warps, right? Because if they're peeking under the 10s are going to get bent the same way all the time.
Yeah.
And there'll be a warp. So then, like, you've got really good information for insurance if you see there's an ace up and the card's kind of cupping the table.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So let's, I want to ask a little bit more about that. Well, actually, I want to step back and talk about the $2 games. So you were just really grinding kind of, you know, a lower, did you know what your EV was per hour or you hadn't really calculated?
For a long time, I didn't really. I was a hobbyist at that point in time. So I was just kind of going and playing and enjoying it. But at one point in time, I was on a Discord voice chat with Rymo, and you know, and I was talking about, you know, this session and that session and this, and he goes, you know, for as much as you're playing, you really should get some simulation software and look at the numbers. And so, per Rymo's advice, I went and got CVCX and CVBJ, and started simming it, and that gave me a much better understanding of the game, more so than I got out of any books. I mean, looking at CVCX and like how Risk of Ruin and EV, but especially Risk of Ruin changes with the penetration, that was kind of the first eye-opener to me that, hey, it doesn't matter if this game only lets me double on 10 and 11. They deal it so much deeper than this game that's letting me double on anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a huge game changer for me in our early team I was on. You know, we just made up a betting unit and made up a bet spread, and had no idea of really our risk or anything with it. And then, you know, maybe a few months in, it was called Blackjack Risk Manager 2002, and it was kind of an earlier version of CVCX. And to see how the deck penetration had a bigger impact than the rules, just changed everything. So were you using high-low at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you get involved in Rimo's Blackjack, the Discord?
So that would have, I'm trying to think what the exact time frame for that would have been. I want to say that, it was sometime in 2016. I'm not sure exactly when.
Sure.
And that sort of branched off of, I'm sure some people are familiar with, well, I don't really want to name the guy, but there was
another kind of Discord.
there was another Discord being led by someone who didn't really know what they were doing. And it was bad. If you wanted to talk about index plays or deviations, you had to send them in private messages, because if you put it in the general chat, you would get banned, because this guy believed that deviations didn't exist.
Yeah, he was more of a gambler that thought he could count cards than a card counter.
And Rimo would pop in there once in a while and try to educate people, so that they're not going out and just blowing money, when they don't have the bankroll for it. Because this guy was encouraging people to do the change jar challenge and empty their change jar and play on like $50.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, Rimo got banned from that, and then he invited me to the one he was making, and eventually it ended up that this other Discord channel died, and everybody who was actually serious about advantage play ended up in Rimo's Discord.
Cool.
And I've been a part of that Discord since he started it, and I do a little bit of moderation over there, but not a ton.
Yeah, I've popped on there before. Rimo's become a friend. He'll come out during a boot camp weekend, and we've hung out quite a bit. But I'm glad he offered a place that was, the people that want to use that medium could get real advanced play advice rather than some of the other stuff that was floating around there.
Absolutely.
So you got some betting software. You're able to kind of figure out what you were actually generating, and then you were playing some opportunities that were not table games related that gave you a bigger edge.
Right.
And you don't have to share about that. But I want to ask a little bit more about the peak games. So explain to people what that meant, or first basing.
All right. So when there's not a peaking device, right? There's not a mirror or the little light. Now, some places do this, but they'll only peek under the ace. But this place and one other place in that town would still peek under the 10. So what they would have to do is lift the card up with their hand. And a lot of them were very sloppy about doing it. So if you were sitting at first base, most of them are checking with their right hand. And if they're not protecting that side, you'd just be at first base. And if you were tall enough, you could usually get a look at the card. It might not be the most clear look, but it should at least tell you like paint or no paint type of information.
So
which
is this
pretty valuable?
So is this this is a pitch game, and so it's handheld? And
this was a shoe game, actually.
Oh, okay. So when are they? I'm trying to just picture when you're seeing the card from up high.
Right. So the 10 as the up card, they lift it, and if their left hand isn't over on the side protecting the card as it's being bent up for them to peek to see if they have blackjack, you have a pretty clear view from the side. And sometimes even if they are protecting it, but they're not doing it well,
I see.
If they bend it up too high.
If you're shorter, their hand's protecting it. But if you're up high enough,
right? Like if their hand's just laying on the felt, if you're shorter, that might be enough to block it. But if you're taller, you see over that hand.
Mm-hmm. And so then if it's a 10 up and it's a 6 underneath, then you'd adjust your playing. Yeah. Is this at the $2 to $50 tables?
Yeah. So one of these games was a $2 minimum to a 100 max, and the other was a $2 minimum to a $25 max. And of course, at the time, the low maxes didn't bother me at all. In fact, like on the 100 max, I wasn't even playing the 100 max.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if they were able to get away with, if this were a $500 max table, someone would just obliterate it, and it might have gotten fixed.
Well, and if it was a $500 max, they might have actually had somebody watching the game. And that was kind of the other weird thing about this place is you would have two dealers, no pit boss anywhere in sight, just two dealers rotating on and off. One of them would be dealing, the other one would be the cocktail waitress.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just silly.
Yeah, I've played some places similar to this. It was in another country once that they were peaking, and they might even make a comment. Did you ever have any sort of dealer tells outside of just the cupped cards? Or
yeah, there was. This was at the 25 max place, and this dealer, I don't know if she was intentionally trying to help players or if she was. I mean, she seemed a little crazy, like she might just have some sort of mental illness like schizophrenia or something. But she'd peek and sort of under her breath, every now and then you'd catch her saying, "I'm weak."
Oh, wow.
And so that was kind of a tricky situation, because if it's intentional, it's collusion.
Yeah.
If it's just her like having mental problems, it's her making a mistake in the house, not protecting their game. So that, and then it becomes a tough thing, because if you're playing it, you can't tip, because if you tip, it looks like collusion.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that one didn't stick around for very long. They closed tables permanently, like maybe after my third trip there, I think. They closed tables permanently.
Okay.
And it wasn't a huge opportunity because it was 25 max, but
yeah. But still, if you know their information, it's a much higher percentage advantage.
Right.
So it could still be, it could be a situation where it's the equivalent, even though it's a $25 bet, the equivalent of a, true 10 or something. We had that with the church team a couple times, where dealers would kind of say something, like give some information, and we just told our players, like, you probably shouldn't even play with the stakes we were betting. We had a $500 betting unit. Like, we just did not want anyone getting arrested or whatever for collusion. And it seemed like the dealers were giving information in hopes of a tip or whatever. Or like, no, you cannot tip. It's not worth it, and probably don't want to risk playing with those dealers. But that's a pretty unique situation you found.
Yeah, and and I've had other situations before where I've been concerned about the appearance of collusion. I mean, this is maybe going a little off topic, but I was playing this game, and it's a real low roller joint, and this dealer, like, I had like a 12 or something, and she made a hand, and she like looks over her shoulder and goes, "Do you mind if I pay you?" And
Whoa.
And of course, the only correct response to that is, "No, thank you. I don't think it's worth it."
Yeah.
And then leave. And just leave and don't play with her ever again.
Yeah, that's sketchy. So I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I know that there's a story that has to do with Smash Brothers.
Yeah. I don't know that it's like a story, but it's something of note. I think it kind of gives an idea of why Advantage Play appealed to me, and that's that I have sort of a competitive drive that I think a lot of Advantage players do.
Yeah.
So after I was done playing baseball forever, I got really into competitive Smash Bros. And I was kind of into it from a younger age, but now I had the time and the resources to travel with. And I wasn't that great at the game, but I was good enough to, place in the top 16, sometimes top 8 of like a regional event.
Yeah.
And I would and a lot of times to cover expenses, because I'm from a really small state, and people didn't know who I was unless I had played in their state before. To cover expenses, I'd go hustle money matches, kind of like a pool hustler, but with Super Smash
Yeah.
Brothers.
That's awesome. That's like,
hey,
people. It's like poker tournaments. The people that play the cash games around the poker tournament rather than playing the tournament.
Right, exactly. And it wasn't a ton of money because a lot of these guys were college kids who didn't have a ton of money. So it was like $2 here or $5 here, but you could get enough to cover your gas. And then even if you didn't place in the money, you could at least cover your expenses that way.
Yeah. So this was before Advantage Play.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit when I was a part-timer too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pre-Advantage Play.
Okay. I was wondering if that was something you did to grow the bankroll, but it was pre.
Yeah.
So where things go from there? You went full time at around 15K bankroll. You'd moved to high low. You'd started a network through Blackjack the Discord, and and you had some opportunities beyond just counting that made you feel comfortable really putting a lot of time into your Advantage Play. Where things go from there?
So one thing that's kind of interesting about my career has been that there's other people who have played more of these types of games than I have, but like most of the older generation players. But as far as like 21st century card counters go, I don't know very many people who have nearly as much time on single deck blackjack games as I do. So I was almost exclusively, if I was card counting, I was playing single deck for a very long period of time, up until maybe September of last year, I think, is when I finally lost the last good single deck in my region. I mean, there's still some single decks I can play. I just have to drive a little further, but
yeah.
And it wasn't because I was superstitious about multi-deck games or anything. It was just when I came back to my hometown, the nearest casinos to me happened to be some of the last bastion of 3-2 single deck.
Yeah.
So that's just where I ended up getting a lot of hours.
And how did you approach those? Did you use a big bet spread, or were you trying to tread lightly?
So what I would do is, there was one market that I was playing pretty small at, because when I looked at it, there are other opportunities there as well. And I could still play the blackjack game at pretty low stakes and still make a decent hourly because it was single deck, double any two, and resplit aces. So if I wanted to play blackjack, I could, and I would try to keep the stakes low enough that I wouldn't lose the property for the other advantage plays that were available. A little bit later on, I started upping my stakes there, and eventually they didn't technically trespass me, but they tried to trespass me. My voicemail box was full, so they never actually read me anything.
Yeah, that's fine.
But then what I did at a lot of places, though, is I would sort of start out with a smaller spread and get them sort of comfortable with the action, I'd maybe play a half hour to an hour of like 25 to 100 or 25 to 150 or something, so that that would get a lot of black action, checks play. And they would come and they'd see like, a 1-4 spread or a 1-3 spread or whatever. And go, oh, whatever. And then they got really comfortable with me being there. And then either later in the session or later in the day or in the trip or whatever, I would start to make that spread much, much bigger. There was one game where I was playing, I think I was playing a 2x200 max. And then I'd go to 2x3 at, real monsters. And so, and I had them comfortable. I was going there once a month, so everybody kind of knew my name. And if they heard checks play or black action from my table, it was, oh, that's just Nichols.
Yeah.
That's just him. That's fine. And so I started opening with one spot of 10. And so it was like a 1-40 spread on a single deck game. And and it lasted a while. I mean, I played that particular place I'm thinking about. I played there one weekend a month for like 2 years.
Wow.
Before they finally backed me off.
Wow. And that game's got to have less than a 0.1 house edge.
Yeah, the game I was playing at lower stakes was like a 0.16. The game I was just thinking of was actually a D9 one, which is still 0.2 or something like that. Maybe it's 0.3, and dealt incredibly deep.
That's awesome. There's so much value to them just being comfortable with, there's only so much you can do. I talk about just being personable and being natural and comfortable in a casino.
Sure.
But man, when they just know who you are and are comfortable with you, it just can go so far. They're gonna have a breaking point. But
yeah, I mean, I chatted up the dealers and the pit bosses all the time. The general manager of that casino wanted me to do shots with him on New Year's Eve. And, he comes over to the table and says, "Hey, you want to go do shots? It's almost midnight." And I looked at him and I went, "Not now, I'm playing," and just looked like the biggest degenerate in the world to him. So, and I had an interesting rapport with the dealers there too. I think a lot of them knew what was going on, the dealers at least.
Okay.
Not I wouldn't say most, but I mean more than most casinos. And this is one of the very few situations where I think tipping is a good idea. And this is how I would approach tipping there. They'd get down to like 18 cards or something in their hand. And normally that would be a point where they would shuffle. But they would get down there, and if the count was positive, I'd throw like a $1 chip or maybe $2 chips out there to bet for them. And if they pulled the discards and shuffled, I'd look them in the eye, reach out and grab the bet back.
Yeah.
And so so without having to say anything, it kind of trained them to, when they get to that point in the deck, ask me, "Do you want another round or do you want me to shuffle?"
Yeah.
So when it was getting to that depth, I was getting the extra round with, maybe 2 or 3 dealers on on like the swing shift, where if that dealer was at the table with the last third of the deck, I was always getting the extra round with a positive count, and I was never getting the extra round with a negative count, because they would ask me every time they got to that point.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. And if you got like a true 4, true 5, and you're betting, $300, that hand's worth $7-8 to you. If you can get them, you can give up $1 or $2 here and there to make an extra, 8 when you want it, and avoid having to, pay rent on those hands when it's not positive. It's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the other kind of unique games that you've found maybe around this time?
So there was a very, very special promotional game that was actually in the area that I had lived in when I was getting into this. It wasn't the same casino I was going to all the time. It was a different tribe's casino, and they had run all sorts of weird promotions before that were, it was positive off the top, but it wasn't worth as much. Mm-hmm. Like they had this thing where they were paying 5-card 21s $50, and it was regardless of your bet. They would pay you that, and then they had, and they would pay like 777s and stuff too. But that's not that frequent. No. So but on the 5-card 21s, it was only a $5 table. So I had somebody, I think he went by Coop on Blackjack the Discord. He's not really active now. He ran some sort of sim on his own software for it, just because he was interested in it. And turns out it was worth $5 an hour to just sit there and play basic strategy. So as a part-timer, I did that a lot. But they had this other promotion that was a lot more valuable. They called it, well, I don't want to call it I don't want to give the exact name of it in case they ever bring tables back, but they would put jokers in the shoe. In the 6-deck shoe, they would put 4 jokers in, and on the double deck game, they would put 2 jokers in. And they would do this whenever they ran the promotion. It was 1 day a week for 8 hours, I think it was. Maybe it was only 5 hours. But anyways, they'd run it for that shift once a week. And the jokers were automatic winners.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I think a lot of people have, like, if you've done some reading, like into like Stanford Wong's Basic Blackjack book and some other ones, you'll see some like Joker's Wild promos, but never Jokers are an automatic winner.
Yeah.
And when the dealer got a Joker, it just got burned.
Yeah.
So this and the way they did it was kind of interesting, because like if you got a Joker, you got, not only did you win your hand, but you got entered into a drawing, and they would write your name on that Joker, put it in the drawing box. So after so then you had less Jokers until all the Jokers were gone.
Oh, I see.
So on the 6-deck, that could take a while. But I had someone else involved in that play with me. And I told him I was probably going to tell this story, and he was fine with me giving his handle, Sparrowhawk.
Uh-huh.
I had called him when they were bringing this promotion back, because they ran it once a long time ago when I was really, really new and didn't have a lot of money. And now, I had the money. I could just go in and bet table max and not worry about it. So I called him, and he drove out and helped me. And the interesting thing was their shuffling machine, I don't know if it was an older model or what, but it couldn't handle Jokers. It would not shuffle the cards. So they had to hand shuffle it, which they didn't normally do. So their shuffle was really weak. And so on the 6-deck game, Sparrowhawk would watch where they plugged in the new Jokers and then follow them through the shuffle and cut right to them. So we got them out a lot quicker. Now on the double deck game, which was a bigger edge off the top because it was 2 Jokers, so it was 1 Joker per deck. The 2 Jokers would come out, and the dealer would break down to shuffle without getting the new Jokers. So if you waited for them to break down the cards into like the 4 half decks and then said, wait, we need Jokers, they would call the floor to get Jokers. The floor would come over, bring 2 new Jokers. And instead of like stacking them back in the discards and then plugging the Jokers, they would set 1 on top of this half deck, 1 on top of this half deck, and then riffle them together.
Wow.
And then strip it to the bottom. So you knew every time they brought in new Jokers, the 2 Jokers were going to be at the very bottom. So you just cut to the bottom, Joker, bet table minimum until the shuffle, and rinse and repeat. Wow.
That's did you calculate what the edge was on that?
So just with the Jokers, it was something like, we didn't get an exact edge. We kind of approximated based on what we had read about the value of a wild Joker.
Yeah.
It was somewhere around 5% just having the Jokers before including any of the extra stuff with cutting to the Jokers and the shuffle, and without the drawings too. And the only trouble with that is it was $100 max. So I mean, it was still very valuable.
Yeah.
But just imagine what it could have been with a $500 max.
Sure.
And they were limiting, and they would limit you to 1 spot. And the whole reason they did that was, like I mentioned, they ran the promotion once a long time before that. And at that time, I was still really new. I knew there had to be something there, but I didn't have the money and didn't have the experience to know what to do with it. So I would go in and play like 3 spots and just get the drawing entries. So it kind of, doing that early on hurt me when they brought it back, because now there was a restriction to 1 spot. And that's the whole reason I brought Sparrowhawk at first, and then we realized, oh, there's a shuffle thing here too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was I just wanted more spots and more money on the felt. But we realized the table games manager left halfway through the shift, and he was the only one that really knew the rules. So as soon as he walked out of the pit, we'd start playing 2 spots.
Oh, okay.
And behind his back.
Would there be a lot of other players at the table?
Some weeks there were, and some weeks there weren't.
Okay.
In fact, there was another card counter there once, and he was like completely oblivious to the promotion. He was just counting the cards. He was taking insurance at the right times and raising his bet with the count, but just didn't seem to realize that the jokers gave him an edge off the top.
Yeah. Well, I was that card counter early in my career, you know. How'd you guys do at that game?
We did really well. Sparrowhawk was there for the first 2 weeks, and then he had to go back to where he was living at the time for whatever reason. And so I played it solo the next 2 weeks. And what's interesting is, you know, they took some countermeasures against us, but they didn't really understand why we were winning at all.
Yeah.
The first thing they did was they got a lot stricter about the 1 spot thing. That was okay. You know, it was still plus EV by a long shot. It was still a great game. And then after that, they thought that we must be counting, and they had people like come count us down, which the interesting thing was I actually was counting.
Yeah.
And it was because if someone was evaluating me, it would be pretty apparent if I just dropped my bet every time the jokers came out.
Yeah.
But if the count was still positive, I could leave the big bet out there and then and that threw them off the scent of the joker thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, they see me splitting tens, but I'm flat betting, and they go, oh, well, whatever, he's flat betting. What?
Yeah.
And, you know, so they didn't find anything there. And then they decided, well, it must be this double after split and double any 2 stuff. So now the double deck had already been changed to 10-11 only and no DAS, and that was kind of because of me before this promotion. Mm-hmm. But they changed the 6 deck to double 10-11 only and no double after split, which made the locals very upset.
Yeah.
And still didn't protect them.
Yeah. Yeah, because those have no impact on a guaranteed winner with the joker.
Right. And I mean, it hurts it would hurt a little bit because, you know, you can't you're no longer going to get a joker when you're doubling a 9 and beat a dealer 21 and things like that. But, you know, it's still, you know, joker hits your hand, you win.
Yeah.
So
it came to an end after about a month.
Yeah, it lasted about a month, and they finally, I think they finally realized what the issue was. And so the very last week, their countermeasure for me was when it was time to open the double deck, they just grabbed a 6 deck shoe and put it there instead.
Okay. Yeah.
And I knew I had known this table games manager a long time. In fact, I'm the one who suggested the promotion to him.
Oh, funny.
And but I had known him since he was like a break-in dealer, you know, and he had moved up internally. He finally, I think, realized what was going on, and I was kind of upset with him for doing that to me, you know, sticking the shoe out there when I wanted the double deck.
Yeah.
And so the next time I came through there, you know, I was wandering the floor looking at some other stuff, like progressive jackpots and things like that. And to do that, to go where I needed to go, I had to walk around the pit. He sees me and he's, you know, trying to say hi to me. And I'm just giving him the cold shoulder because I'm mad that he gave me the shoe instead of the double deck, which I really shouldn't have been that mad about.
Yeah. Yeah.
In hindsight, like I was being a little vindictive. But so finally he's like, hey, come talk to me. What's going on? And I go, you know, he's like, oh, and you know, and he, you know, apologizes for that. And then, you know, goes, well, you know, you can't come in here every week and win thousands of dollars and expect something not to change. And I go, yeah, you're right. And then, you know, and they had finally pulled the promotion. And instead of, you know, telling me, hey, no more tables or having me 86th or something. He actually was really cool about it and said, hey, thanks for teaching me something.
Huh.
I appreciate it, because he learned something new from that experience.
Wow.
And now they don't have table games at all.
I've never heard of a back off, or I guess countermeasure resulting in thanking the player.
Yeah, no, they were really cool about it. And in the first countermeasure, like I said, the double deck was 10-11 only before this promotion. And so when that happened, that was, I think, right around the time I went full time. And I remember them changing it to that, and the locals were upset, and I was a little miffed. And I remember talking to a manager. It was not the same guy who was table games manager during this promotion, but and he just told me, well, we don't want you to leave, but we got to even the playing field with you. And like, oh, well, it sounds like I just have the green light to hammer it now.
Yeah. So you guys ended up. Did that really help your bankroll, or was your bankroll already pretty sizable by then?
It was already growing quite a bit, but it was helpful. I mean, it was, between the 4 weeks, it was a solid 5-figure win. So
Nice. Awesome. So I don't know many people who've used tournaments to generate EV. I mean, I know Anthony Curtis. He spoke about that when we did a kind of out of boot camp, did a podcast with
right.
him. But you have some experience in that. Is that correct?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay.
I haven't played a ton of tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the things I was doing early on was this one market I was playing a lot, both blackjack and otherwise, was giving me a lot of mail offers. And a lot of those were slot tournament entries for free that came with a hotel room. So, I basically lived in their hotels for over a month
Oh wow.
and was just collecting on the slot tournaments while I was doing other stuff.
Yeah.
The free slot tournaments, there's no risk to it. They
Yeah.
comp it. You just go in and mash the button, and that's free. And then they gave me a few blackjack tournament entries too. Unfortunately, I never won anything in either of them. I would get to like the semifinal table and have something really bizarre happen and lose. But
Yeah. Did you train for those, or read any books, or?
yeah, I know I read a little bit of Stanford Wong's book on tournament strategy, but a lot of the information I was getting was from old forum posts, I think on Blackjack Info from Ken Smith.
Yes, he's a big tournament guy. He has some
Yeah.
ebooks.
And so I was reading a lot of his stuff, and then like there were some articles that he had written, and I learned a lot from that. There was one situation where me advancing from the quarterfinal table to the semifinal table depended on me doubling down a hard 14 correctly.
Oh yeah.
Because I was behind by enough. The table max wasn't enough, so I doubled a hard 14 and I got a 5.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hey, yeah, I guess about a third of the time or a fourth of the time it's gonna
Right.
work out okay.
Right, and I've done some baccarat tournaments too, which are a lot simpler than blackjack tournaments. You know, your decisions are how much to bet and whether it's banker or player. There's no goofy playing decisions because you don't make any decisions.
Well, it also involves how you pick up your cards, and if you decide to tear them a little bit, or there's definitely some like mojo at the baccarat tables.
Right? Do you tear the card or do you poke a hole in it with the pencil?
Exactly. In Paigao, it's like, do you slide the card to the left or do you slide it down? There's definitely some strategy to it that has nothing to do with anything in reality. So it's not really something you seek out, but it sounds like when you go into a casino, this is actually one of the questions I would ask you. What enters your mind when you're planning a trip or going into a casino for the first time?
now the first thing I do is I talk to people within my network and see what they know about these places already and what they're willing to share about these places already. I mean, I don't expect them to give me the juiciest billboard hole card game or anything.
Yeah.
But, but having contacts in a lot of different areas is valuable for that reason. I'll actually be going to a new area really soon, and that's what I've been doing is talking to people that I know out there.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to first try to find out what you can before you go on the trip, and then when, let's say you just go into a new casino, I know Richard Munchkin talks about not having tunnel vision and walking straight to the blackjack table.
Right.
I don't want you to share any trade secrets, but at the same time, get people to think outside of just the blackjack table.
Right.
Are there certain things that you're thinking or doing?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm thinking is, first I want to look for any information that I've been given and see if that is still accurate information. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also, looking at just about every game they have, with the exception of maybe craps, I'm probably not looking at, but
yeah,
I look at just about everything, the table games and the slots. And even if I'm not like stopping and thinking about everything or like really going into detail about analyzing something, I'm at least, walking by and looking to see, okay, is there anything here? Is there anything here? I'm getting a pamphlet from the Players Club to see if there's any promotions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at video poker pay tables. I'm trying to look at just about everything. In fact, like the first time I enter, I might not play anything at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll look through it and then kind of come up with an idea of what the best opportunities there are before I go back in and decide to play. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes card counting is the best opportunity they have there,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a great card counting opportunity, but there's other times where, say you've got a really good video poker opportunity, you don't want to burn that out by playing blackjack and getting 86th.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds similar to kind of ping pong's. Well, except he's not doing any card counting. How much of what you're doing is card counting?
At the present moment, I'm doing probably more card counting than I have been the last few years. Just because I decided to be a part of a team, and I'm still not playing a ton of card counting hours, but I'm obligated to play X amount of hours for the team. The big reason to be a part of it is it's somewhat passive income, and it helps mitigate the swings and get to the long run faster and all that. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing a little bit more now, but I would say for like the majority of like from 2017 to now, from when I went full time to now, card counting's been probably less than 50%, but more than 30% of what I do.
And for the first couple of years, it was probably 90% of what you're doing.
Yeah, like as a part timer, that was the only thing I knew how to do.
Yeah.
For a while, until I learned a couple other things.
Cool. And you were a part of the group that played the 5-card Charlie game that Stan Podolak mentioned. Yeah. So did that just feel too good to be true? When was it you that found it, or was it Stan? I'm trying to remember.
So Stan found it, and
that's right. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I knew the strategy from playing a game with 6-card Charlie, which 6-card Charlie is not enough to give you an edge off of the top. 5-card Charlie is. So I already kind of knew the strategy, and he messaged the group and was like, "Hey, this is a thing that's happening. What do I need to do? What is the best way to approach this?" And so I sent him a link to the proper strategy for a Charlie game, and of course, we came to the conclusion you bet max.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, by the time I actually got to play it, they had made some changes.
Okay.
So we still made money on it because the rest of the group played it. But when I had gotten out there, it was only twice a week instead of every day, and they were limiting you to 10 Charlies per day. And they had lowered the table max to $100 when it was previously, I think, $3.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm here. I'll play it. It's
Yeah.
still not exactly, but close to $1,000 in EV.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take it where I can get it, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't get to have nearly the experience that they had.
Yeah. So
When they
started
were,
out as
betting max and having crazy swings, and everyone was
yeah.
terrified.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it might have been 3 to 5,000 in EV a day, depending on how many you were allowed to get before. And it dropped, but it was still worth playing. But it's kind of like the
Yeah,
early wild west of it kind of died down.
right. Because at that point, if you were already in the area, yeah, you go play it. But
Yeah.
to drive like 12 or 13 hours like I did, it was a real letdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess some of those things, I remember a place that we drove, just all day for and showed up and conditions had completely changed from the intel we had. And it was like a bust of a trip, but then other times you show up and things are better than you're expecting. It's all kind of part of it. You've probably seen it all, or maybe not all, but quite a bit at this point of games coming and going.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm starting to see more of that. I mean, promotions coming and going, particular like a specific game coming and going, rule changes happening all the time. And especially after someone gets hit hard. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's not a promotion, like they'll change rules, they'll change the cut, they'll have new policies all the time. And then, a few months later, if nobody's been there because now they have a reputation, all of a sudden it's good
Yeah.
again.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Sometimes it's like you have no idea what caused it to change so dramatically, but it could be a new manager.
Hmm.
There was a place I was playing, and while I was there, they were changing all the tables to CSMs while I was playing.
Oh,
So it went like the first day of my trip, I was playing out on the main floor. By the second or third, or I think by the second day, I was having to wait late enough for them to open up the regular games, and then by the end of the trip it was like only high limits room that I could play.
right,
But they might get enough outrage from players that if I went back there, it's all back to
right.
non CSMs.
Well,
Hard to know.
and sometimes those changes that are made because of new management or whatever, sometimes those lead to some pretty big opportunities too.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
for example, like if on Blackjack Apprenticeship, if you like click on my profile, my I don't know what you'd call that, like timeline picture type thing, is this
Uh-huh.
royal flush that's like $17,900 or something like that. Well, that happened because of a situation like that where new management was coming over, and they took a whole bunch of progressive, like slot machines with progressive jackpots off of the floor. And well, they can't just, the progressive money can't just disappear. That would be illegal. They have to put it
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they put it into video poker for some
Oh
reason.
man. That's
And
awesome.
I had just left this town. Like this happened like that morning. I had left that town, and one of my friends who was playing blackjack there calls me and goes, "Hey, you're not going to believe what just happened, but you need to
Yeah.
come back." And he tells me what the progressive's at, and so I turn around because that was a dollar machine. 5 credits was the max. It wasn't like some 15 or 20 credit type of progressive. It was five
Yeah.
credits max. It was like a 4 times royal, just because they, made a mistake doing that.
Wow.
And
So he
so,
went
yeah, I
back and
mean,
picked up
yeah,
$17,900.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, um, yeah, because he didn't feel comfortable playing that game
Oh wow.
on his own bankroll. So I paid him and his wife to play as well, so that it
Yeah.
didn't take a week.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you've been an Advantage player for roughly 5 years now. What's been the most valuable part? The most valuable part of Advantage play when you think about it?
By far, the freedom and flexibility of schedule it provides. I dread the idea of going back to going into the office every morning at 9, and I don't like. I mean, I can deal with a little bit of obligation, like with the team and playing a certain amount of hours, but I still get to fulfill that obligation at my convenience.
Yeah.
Rather than you need to be here at this time until this time, and here from this time until this time, and so I'm able to be involved in more like family events or things that are going on in my friends' lives and things like that. It's a lot easier to make time for that without having to worry about when I have to be at work. I can just, cousin's getting married. I can say, all right, I'll be there. I'll make it happen.
Yeah. Yep. No, I totally get it. It's it might be too strong of a word, but kind of addictive to just be able to say, my work fits around what I really value rather than having to fit all of my values around a 9 to 5.
Right.
Anything you would do differently as you look back at the last 5 years?
I would have joined Blackjack Apprenticeship earlier.
Oh, nice plug.
And not gone through the whole experience of trying to learn it all on my own. I mean, either Blackjack Apprenticeship or maybe even another forum too.
Sure.
Just
no, Blackjack Apprenticeship. That's good.
Yeah, it was tough trying to learn it all on my own without it really much support. I mean, once I was involved with the Discord, that's when I started really starting to understand things because, I was talking to people like Rimo all the time. Rimo and Sparrowhawk and all these other guys that were on there. Whereas before, I was just reading a book and trying to count faster, and I didn't really understand where my edge came from. I didn't really understand what the variance was like. I didn't understand that I was very, very lucky to win 3,000 in a night with a max bet of $100. You know?
Probably, you probably would have gotten betting software a lot sooner.
Yes, yeah, that would be the other one. I would have gotten CVCX a lot sooner. I don't think the pro betting software existed at that time.
No. Was that was a year and a half ago, I think.
Yeah,
I made that.
That's more what I use now, if for no other reason than because my laptop doesn't want to cooperate with me.
Yeah,
and I can do the pro betting software on a tablet or a phone. So
that's why I made it.
I would have done that. And then there's. I think everybody's got a few memories like this. There's a few places you wish you just would have been more aggressive at before they got rid of you.
Yep. Man, that's tough though, because you made some places last, but it's always like hindsight's 20/20. If you should have just been more aggressive or should have, treaded more lightly. It's so tough. But I think in general, I think most of us look back and say, I wish we would have been more aggressive and generate the EV when we could.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially with splitting tens, you don't split your tens because you're worried about heat, and then you get backed off the same session anyways. And it's like, well, why am I not splitting my tens when the count calls for it? Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Split your tens when the count calls for it.
Yeah, do it.
Anything else you want to share with people while we got you?
I don't really have anything in particular, like a story or anything to share. I mean, I don't have good back off stories because they've all been polite.
Well, that's
nobody wants
nice.
Nobody wants to hear bad beat stories. I guess what I will say though is, keep your eyes open to other opportunities. Don't just for the new players out there, the people that are maybe getting ready to go out and play or maybe even play full time, like we said earlier, don't get tunnel vision about card counting. Card counting is great. and there's almost always an opportunity in most gaming jurisdictions for you to count cards, but it's not the only thing. So if you see something and you think there might be something there, take a look at it, at least investigate it, because you might be sitting on a gold mine and you don't want to be the guy counting cards at a Joker promotion.
Yes. That's a good point. There actually was a very, very similar thing that happened, I don't know, maybe 6 or 9 months ago that it almost combines two of your stories, but there was a casino closing down and they had to pay out all of their jackpot money. It was changing ownership, and they had to give back to the players all this progressive or whatever it was.
Sure.
And so they came up with all these ways to give it back. It was like if you got a certain kind of blackjack, maybe it was like a hearts blackjack, you got automatically paid at the blackjack table. If you were at baccarat, it had to do with some sort of hand or whatever. They came up with all these things, and I couldn't play it. I had something else going on. And so I told a couple friends, because I figure if someone's going to take the money, I want it to be people I know. And they're crushing this promotional thing for hundreds of dollars an hour. And actually someone, a card counter that had been at a recent boot camp walked in, went straight to the blackjack table, sat down, recognized that one of the persons playing it, because it was someone that helped put on the boot camp, and never was curious about what the person was doing. He just started counting cards there. And there's things plastered all around the casino saying, like all these payouts you get for these different hands at different games. And it was just like, just walked past thousands and thousands of dollars worth of EV to just sit down and count cards. And so you got to just have your...
That reminds me, earlier you asked like what my approach was when I'm walking through a casino for the first time. And actually that's you just reminded me. One thing I like to do is if I see somebody betting more than the average customer, and usually it doesn't take that long to figure out whether they're an advantage player or not. But I almost always stop and watch to see what they're doing, to see if, if they're an advantage player and I need to like stay away from them, like while they're playing, or two, if there's another angle there, I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of sit back and observe. And generally speaking, an advantage player in a casino is going to be betting more money than the average patron there, especially in these small towns. So that's one of the things I kind of look for. And then, the other tells, like having a bunch of cash and old cargo shorts and stuff like that. But, or having like a chip inventory that's like a bunch of reds and greens that aren't colored up. Like that's usually a good sign too.
Yeah.
And so I'll like look for those kind of things and see if someone else is playing another angle. But I think what you had said about sharing that opportunity with a couple other people is another important thing to note for newer players is your network is so valuable.
Yeah.
It's incredibly valuable. So if you get a situation like that where you've got something really good and you can't play it, let someone else have that one, and they might, send something your way down the line.
Yes.
Or, they might even give you a cut of their action on it.
Yep.
In which case you get some EV instead of no EV. And so really, it's a good idea to work on developing a network. You don't have to like give out every play that you have to somebody and tell them all of your secret games, but at least being helpful in some regard, like whether it's pointing someone in the right direction if they're newer, or maybe giving some intel about a count game and someone's going somewhere, whatever you can do to try to just get people that you trust. Because then in the future, you guys end up sharing information back and forth all the time. And say you live on the West Coast and the other person lives on the East Coast. How else were you going to get intel about Atlantic City or Pennsylvania if you weren't talking to somebody over there already?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think people need to have the attitude of paying it forward rather than waiting to be paid back. It's gonna benefit you more. And don't be short-sighted and just think about, the dollars you can make today. Think about, the value of a valuable network over a career, what that's going to do for you. That's awesome. Cool. Well, any I guess people can ask you on the forum if they have follow-up questions. You cool with that?
Yeah. Ask me if it's about blackjack. Go ahead and ask on the forum. If it's about other stuff, go ahead and send me a private message. I can't promise you that I'll answer the question to your satisfaction, but I can at least try to point you in the right direction, or something of that nature.
Well, people should just understand that in general. We're in a business that does involve a level of keeping some things close to the chest. But you've been, for people who don't know, Nichols it helps moderate our forum. He's been incredibly generous and valuable as a forum moderator, and people have been clamoring for this podcast for a long time. I just know there's going to be some people that probably had a question that I didn't get to, but you're not going to give up your secret game to everybody, as I wouldn't expect people to do.
Well, maybe if you've got a secret game for me, I'll share a secret game. That's
right.
You.
That's right. Pay it forward, folks. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for spending this time to share about your story. And you guys can, ask Nichols follow-up questions on the forum when I post this on there. And if you have any other questions, you could ask them, whether it's related or at Nichols or not, just on the forum at Blackjack Apprenticeship. And we'll catch you guys next time.